Welcome to the Mom as Well podcast, where we are digging deep into the gifts and the gaps of foster and adoptive parenting. I'm Tara Hutton, and I'm glad you're here.
Mama's Well.
Yes, she is. Well, welcome to Mom as Well. If this is the first time you're here, let me tell you what we're all about. We are a place to talk about parenting, to talk about the hard things and the gifts, the gaps, like I said, of trauma, and the way that we are helping our children find a safe place to heal from theirs, the way that they are inviting us to heal from ours. And we've learned, and we are learning, that we can't give what we don't have. And so as we heal and as we understand our own fears, our own anxieties, our own overwhelms, we can better help our kids. And so if you are interested in that kind of thing, then you're in the right place. So welcome. So today, though, I want to talk about what happens when those kiddos don't find that place. What happens when kids don't find permanency, when they don't find people, safe homes, safe places to help them stabilize, to help them heal, to help them grow, to help launch them into adulthood. What happens to those kids? And I think we all, if you're listening, if you've been here for a while, you know that's a reality. But I went to the internet, where you find all kinds of answers, and I pulled some statistics from a bunch of different sources, and so I want to tell you what happens to those kiddos when we don't intervene. I want to read these so I get them right. More than 23,000 children will age out of the U.S. Age out of foster care in the U.S. every year. 40 to 50% of former foster youth become homeless. That means they're living under bridges. They're living in wherever they can find a place within 18 months after leaving care. 40 to 50% of those 23,000 each year. About 1 in 4 kids who age out of the system will not graduate from high school or be able to pass their GED. Only 1 out of 2 foster kids who age out of the system will have gainful employment by the age of 24. Less than 3% of children who have aged out will earn a college degree, even though, and this was reported in several sites, that more than 70% of them report to having a desire to earn a college degree, and many states offer tuition and fee waivers for kids who have been in care. So they're not taking advantage of that, it sounds like. 7 out of 10 girls who age out of foster care will become pregnant before the age of 21. 75% of women and 33% of men receive government benefits to meet their basic needs after they age out of care, so they are reliant on the government. 1 out of 2 kids that age out of the system will develop substance dependence. That's half, and I would suggest that's probably even higher. Nearly 60% of young men who age out of foster care have been convicted of a crime, and 80% of our inmates that are incarcerated in our prisons have spent time in foster care. 80%. So talk about wanting to get to the root of something. We got to look at these kids because they're suffering. And we talk a lot about trauma here. And we know that any child who has been separated from their birth parents, whether that was at birth or whether that was when they were 15 years old, they have experienced trauma, because to lose your primary caregiver, to lose a mother or a father, is trauma. So my guest today is, he knows these statistics better than I do. He probably can give us some more. He spends much of his time working with these families, our kinship families who are raising kids in care, and then also kids that are at risk of aging out, who never will develop a home, will never come into permanent placement and have a family. That's so important. So welcome, George Lindahl. Thank you for joining us.
Glad to be here.
Yeah, thank you very much. I know a little bit about you, George. I know that you have had a very successful first career right? I know you're married. I've had dinner with you and your wife, Christy, who is an adoptee. Correct. And who recently dove in to finding her birth family. And I think that's been a really neat experience. I know that. I know that you love people. You love my husband. You have mentored him and reached out to him and connected him to people. You're a connector of people. I know that you are a very prominent, that's not the word, you're very involved board member of an organization, a nonprofit called Angel Reach here that works with at-risk teens and families. And so that's a lot, but there's a lot more to you, and I am super excited to hear about it. So can you fill in a little bit of those gaps for me, George? Like, start with maybe what attracted you to, well, you start where you want to start, but I do want to go to what attracted you to Angel Reach in the first place.
Okay. Well, real quickly, I'll be 75 next week.
Well, congratulations.
So I'm really old.
You look great.
I'm really old.
And you're super active.
I am. Yeah. Racquetball every morning.
That's awesome.
First half of my life, I was a baby boomer, and there were 70 million of us, and I was the first year, and those were the World War II veterans. My dad was in World War II. So we were sort of programmed, I think, to do better than our parents.
Yeah.
And my father was a blue-collar steel worker, so go to college, do well, excel. I did all that. His definition was be more successful financially than I am. He was a blue-collar worker. But I had a great family, a loving family.
Also, George, the Great Depression probably played a huge part in the way that our grandparents and parents.
For sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I did succeed. So I'm a geologist, geophysicist by background. I had a 40-year career in the business. I became a CEO of a Fortune 500 company.
Wow.
And I went to Alabama. I was raised on the wrong side of the tracks. So, what dawned on me when I became CEO in my early 50s of a Fortune 500 company, it dawned on me, what's there left to do? I've made a lot of money, corporate jets, company ranches, offices around the world. What's there left to conquer? I'm at the very top, and it became sort of lonely. And simultaneously, my faith became much more serious. I was always taken to church or drugged to church, as they say, but I never got it. And I went through all the emotions, and I would say I was a good Christian, but I didn't get it. And so in my early 50s, someone told me there's only one way to get to heaven. I said, you gotta be kidding me, there's only one way? And the answer was, accept Jesus. That's it. And then do a few things to understand what he expects from you and hang out with good people. So I went on a mission trip. I read a book called Halftime, and the book mainly focused on it's not success you want, it's significance. And to give back, it's not all about money. Sweat equity many times is more valuable, volunteering, than actually writing a check. Writing a check doesn't do a whole lot. It helps a lot, but you're not getting much of it. So here's what I want to say right now, that if you remember one thing I tell you, and I know you can remember one sentence, it's the real joy in life is helping someone else. It's not a Lamborghini, it's not a swimming pool, it's not a cruise, vacation, it's not a new Gucci purse. That's all nice.
Yeah.
But the real joy in life is helping someone in need.
Yeah. And because you can say that because you have had all those
I've had
things.
everything, and I've made way more money for my lifestyle than I could ever spend.
Yeah.
So once you understand that, everyone's looking for joy in life. And it's hard to think, well, how can you get joy out of life by helping a foster kid? Well, all I can tell you is it works, and you got to experience it. So early on, I was able to walk away in my early 50s and then have the time to give back. And after bouncing around and trying different things, I found out my heart is really what I call the 5 L's. And what you need to know is, where's your heart?
Yeah.
And there's lots of good places. I mean, education, hospitals, medical, people at risk. So it's what touches your heart that you make a difference with. Mine turned out to be what I call the 5 L's: the least, the last, the lonely, the looked over. Did I say them all right? Least, last,
Least,
lost,
the
lonely,
last,
and looked
the
over.
lonely, looked over.
Least, last, lost,
Lost,
lonely, and looked over.
There we go.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. It used to be 4 L's, and then I heard a preacher talked about lonely, and I thought,
Yeah.
well, that's another one, because so many people are lonely.
Yeah.
So when you think about that, where are those? Well, that's people in need. That's the poorest of the poor, the underserved. And what Jesus said one time was, what you do for the least of them, that's what you're doing for me.
Yeah.
So that's where the joy comes from. So women, battered women, foster kids, homeless, third world countries, those are what I'm drawn to.
Yeah.
And so over the last 10 years, there's a charity called Angel Reach. It's a 501c. It's faith-based. It's in Montgomery County. And there, from what we can tell, there are not many that focus on aged-out youth.
Right.
And you talked about statistics. I'll just repeat some you said
Yeah.
because you said so many. And it's if you age out at 18 in Texas and you're a male, within 1 year, 50% are homeless or incarcerated.
Right.
If you're a female and you age out, in 1 year, you're pregnant or have children, 70% do.
Yeah.
And 70% of that group, which is half, lose their children back to Child Protective Services. So the cycle's growing.
Yeah.
It's growing with that. And so Angel Reach focuses on 2 ministries. One is the aged out and the homeless youth, and one is the kinship families. Kinship is when CPS gets a person in their organization, the first thing to do is try and find a relative. And if they can place it with an aunt, an uncle, or grandmother, then they're not in Child Protective Services anymore. They're out of the foster system. So we have about 100 families that we help that have taken on average of 4 grandchildren or 4 nieces and nurses. So that's our ministry. And it's a tough ministry because you mentioned half the kids have not graduated from high school at 18, and they're probably behind 1 or 2 years in their education. So they've got to get their high school degree with us. Our program is 4 years, so if you come to us, we'll house you, feed you, clothe you, help you any way we can, driver's license, but you've got to get a GED, and we can get you in college too. So 5 years it takes to get these kids back on their feet, and what these kids want, they're never going to have. It's someone to call mother, father, grandmother. They're never going to have it. So think about growing up never having a mother or grandmother in your life, or a dad. It's just hard to imagine. These kids have never had a birthday cake in 18 years.
Yeah.
Never had a new shirt or shoes. Never been on a boat ride, never been in an airplane, never eaten in a nice restaurant, never been to the dentist in 18 years. And they bounced around. Some of them have been in 3 states and 14 homes. Many of them have been in residential treatment centers where no one will take them. So these are for-profit houses that basically drug these kids till they're 18 because they're issues they have, all kind of issues.
Yeah.
Trauma is the first thing we have to tackle.
Yeah.
It may take these kids 2 years to get over trauma. They've been over-medicated, they've been on drugs, they've been sexually trafficked. It's just horrible.
Yeah.
But they're smart, they've got a good heart, and we can save them.
George, I'm sitting here thinking, and I can't pretend to know how your programming as a kid was, but I can tell you about mine, and I have not talked about this. I've talked about this a lot in groups of people that, small trusting groups of people, but I'm going to say this publicly, but there was a thought process for me growing up, from my parents, from my grandparents, that people who were in jail, used drugs, pregnant at 18 or 16 or 15 or 12 or whatever, there was a stigma that what's wrong with these people, right? That's the only thing I can use to say. I'm so ashamed to say that, but that is a mentality that I had at one point in my life. And when you start to do the work that you're doing and do the work that I'm doing, and you start to see people and hear people and their stories and where they come from, it just changes you.
It does, and it does. And a lot of people, when we say, would you want to help us mentor? And my first impression when they came to me, a lady came to me and said, would you look at this ministry and think about helping them? my first impression is, why would I want to get around a kid that's on drugs and has been in jail and has a felony conviction? That just doesn't sound like something you want to touch.
Right.
But these kids have a good heart. They're smart. They've just been mistreated for 18 years.
Yes.
And then you say, well, there's hope for them.
Yeah, and their parents. It's a cycle, right? Because if you look at these statistics, right, that was their parents, and that was probably their parents, and it will become.
It's generational.
Yes.
Yeah.
And it is rooted in so much of it for people like myself and like you who do have resources and time and a heart to help. When we don't know what we don't know, but when we see something, we can't unsee it.
Right. And early on, Angel Reach thought we could get all these kids jobs. We've got a great board. We found out they don't even know how to get dressed and brush their teeth, much less go to work. Mm-hmm. So you've got to, whatever you think about us being raised, throw it out the window.
Yeah.
Because these kids have nothing.
Yeah.
I've mentored 10 boys in 10 years. 5 have made it. 5, I don't know where they are. So that's a pretty good success, 50%.
Yeah.
3 of them still spend Christmas, Thanksgiving with me. In fact, I've got a diamond ring being delivered today to a 25-year-old that I've mentored for the last 7 years, and he's going to get engaged. He's got a good job. They just bought a little house. He's made it. But he was at age 12, his mother shot him in the back. She was an alcoholic. He woke up in CPS and has never wanted to see his mother or his siblings since then, and won't. And so he's bounced around multiple homes. He had real anger issues. One time I gave him my box at the Pavilion at a concert to sit in, and they took him out in handcuffs, which didn't make me feel very good since I was on the board of the Pavilion. But he's got over that, but he's 25 years old.
But you didn't quit on him.
No, and he came in at 18.
Yeah, no, you didn't
I
quit,
didn't
on,
quit
him
on him
when you're on the board of a pavilion, which if you don't live in this area is a very large
largest outdoor concert in the world.
The largest outdoor in the world.
Uh-huh.
Wow. And you're on the board, you have box seats, you give them to him, he gets taken out in handcuffs, and you are now helping him with a purchase of a ring, I'm assuming.
Yes.
So what you gave him was way, like, the seats to the pavilion were nothing in comparison to you didn't quit on him.
Right. Well, I took him to Honduras 3 times. That opens your eyes because they think, how can I help somebody? You go to a third world country, you find out they don't want to leave. They want to stay because they're first time in their life they're able to help somebody else.
Wow. George, a lot of people in your position that have made more money than they know what to do with, they likely, a lot of people do give away money, right? Mm-hmm. You see them at the big galas that we go to, right? And they're writing the big checks. They're buying the tables and all that stuff. But most of them, I don't even want to make that kind of judgment. Many aren't doing. They write the checks, but you've chosen to walk in.
Right, and that's what I'm saying. You may not believe me, but the real joy in life is helping somebody in need. And so I wake up every day. I have bad days, but I have a lot of good days. And my good days being at Angel Reach. Mm-hmm. And I don't play golf, and I'm not against golf. But I don't know, if you are not working in a full-time job, it's hard to say, how do I get satisfaction in life? And family and children and grandchildren bring you a lot of joy. Mm-hmm. And I'm all for that. But again, I don't use the word retirement because it sort of says you're just going to sit in a lazy boy and
play
fade
golf,
away.
or whatever.
Yeah, and I'm not against golf, but so it's great for me, and I get as much out of it or more than I'm giving.
Yeah. Okay. Let's talk about some of the ways that. Let's just talk about some of the ways. You've mentioned some of them. You mentor. I think that one is wow. I mean, to me, that's like at the top of the list. And all of these things actually involve mentoring. All of these things you do. So what does that look like?
Let's just go over some things you could do starting out. We've got a group of ladies. These kids have never had a birthday cake. Okay. So we have a group of ladies that we have 100 people that need a birthday cake. So they make birthday cakes. That's easy. We have a food bank that we pick up food from the Montgomery Food Bank and distribute it to our clients and kinship families on Tuesdays. You can volunteer to help Monday and Tuesday, so those are easy. You could be a tutor. We need girls' night out. These kids, I've probably been to a movie, or the wrong movie for sure, or bowling, or anything. So guys' night out, girls' nights out. Those are great things that just take a little time. Mentoring probably takes a couple of visits a month working with, and it's long term. But there's so many, from a couple hours a week to 20 hours a week. We have a furniture bank, a clothing bank, a food bank. Those are staffed by volunteers. We couldn't operate without volunteers.
Yeah. So tell me what it was like when you said, when someone presented you the opportunity to mentor, and you said, this is a kid on drugs. What am I going to do with that? You know, what clicked in your brain that said, I'm going to try it?
That's a great question. Just going up and seeing two ladies that were not taking a salary, that were clothing and feeding and helping the aged out with no budget. They need help. I mean, they're working their butts off, volunteering. They're buying the food. They're collecting clothes. They need help. And so I said, I'm in a position to help them. And then they introduced me to some of the clients. And actually, the two ladies that started, one of them adopted 7 aged out kids.
Wow.
Adopted 7 aged out kids. So that sort of says that they need help.
Yeah.
And then I was going to Honduras 2 or 3 times a year, and it was a great opportunity to take them. And we had a lot of good people there around that could learn about them. And so it grew on me. It grew on
you.
Yeah.
Okay. So
and I said, maybe I didn't say, but early on, the first few years when I said I need to give back, I've taken for 50 years, I need to give back, I gave money to anybody that asked me. And that's a mistake. You've got to find where your heart is.
Right.
And it took me 2 or 3 years to figure out my heart was the 5 L's.
Yeah.
But once I did that, then you can concentrate on it. So again, I would really tell you, if something touches your heart, that's where you want to go to.
So when you say mentor, and you said 10 years, you've mentored 10 kids, 5 you don't.
5 I left the program.
Okay, 5 left the program.
And 5 have made it. They've graduated, 2 from college, believe it or not. A lot are in trade schools. The guy I mentioned that's getting engaged is on a drilling rig. He's making $60,000, $70,000 a year. And they've just bought a house. So, and he comes Thanksgiving, Christmas. Wow. He's part of my family.
So that's how you mentor.
Right. Well, you start out meeting with them maybe twice a month for a lunch or just a meeting and get to know them. And they're not going to trust you.
Yeah.
They're going to say, "Why do you want to help me? I've been lied to all my life.
What do you want from me?"
Exactly. Yeah. So it just takes time.
Yeah.
And some people are really good at that, but it's a large task to take on.
How did you know when you finally, my daughters have been living with us since 2015, 2016, but there are moments that I see, she trusts me. It makes me cry. She trusts me. She finally trusts me. And then that, what I've learned about trauma is it's developmental, and it shows up in our life, a smell, a scent, a situation, right? Can trigger us back, right? Can take us, when we're not aware of what's happening, and that takes a long time to become really aware, but she'll be super, we'll be attached, super connected, and then something will happen and she'll push away, right? Do you remember a moment when you were mentoring some of these kids? Do you only mentor boys probably? I'm thinking, okay. Where you were like, they trust me. Have you had some moments like that where you felt like it wasn't just like you were in their life, in their world?
Well, I think after a while, some of them would call me, and I would always get together. I tell people this. It's really true. I'm going to diverge a minute. Is so many things that somebody asks you to do, you say, I don't want to do that. I don't want to meet that person. That's not for me. And what I would tell you is I've never gone to a meeting or met somebody I didn't learn something from, and whether they introduced me to somebody else. So, don't shy away from something. You need to understand the circumstances. But these guys, they would call me and I'd answer the phone.
Yeah.
I would purposely tell my wife, I'm taking them to lunch or dinner, and I don't really want to do that tonight. But after I got from dinner,
You're like, gosh, I'm glad I did that.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So I always say, you think you want to do things that you don't want to do, and then you find out that's the best thing happened to me today.
Yeah.
And I've done that for 10 years, so it's repeatable.
Yeah.
And like I said, now some of them are in the family. Let me tell you a quick story I learned
please.
this week about one of the kids that just joined Age of Reach. He's 23 years old. I met him on a tour this week. Handsome, good-looking guy.
Yeah.
He could be a Harvard MBA, looking and talking.
Yeah.
I said, how'd you get here? He said, well, I've been here 3 months. I had 3 ladies on the tour. I said, would you tell us your story? He said, sure. He said, I had an abusive father that was always beating me up, and just as soon as I could get out of the house at 16, I left. And for 16 to 23, I've been homeless. I've been on drugs, you name it, I've done it. He said a couple of months ago, he was sleeping in a truck in a church parking lot for a long time. That was his house. And someone knocked on his window, and it was a pastor named Ivan. And this is Spring, Texas. And so Ivan said, you can't live in our parking lot.
Yeah.
But come on in, let me talk to you. And he said he prayed for him. And the guy's name's Herbie. And Herbie said, I don't believe in God. And he said, well, you can't stay here. If you need me, call me. So Herbie said, about 2 weeks later, I was still homeless, needed food, so I called Ivan, Pastor Ivan. He said, come on in. He said, I was sitting there and he was praying for me, and this blue sheen surrounds Pastor Ivan's body, an out-of-body experience. He said, couldn't believe it. Pastor told him about Angel Reach. He had visited us. We'd spoken at his church. He came, he joined. He's now been with us 3 months. He's going to make it. He's 23. He's not 18.
Yeah.
He's been bounced around since he was 16.
Yeah.
And he's going to make it. He's
Yeah.
going to go to college. He's going to graduate. He just needs somebody to give him to love on him.
So even at 23, how is there an age limit for Angel Reach?
It is. We say 16 to 24.
Okay, he
but-
made it in.
Yeah, but
Yeah.
it's a 4-year program, so we'll let them stay a little longer if they need to.
Yeah.
Another thing I would tell you, we just have a guy who's been with us 4 years. He is moving into a Habitat house next month.
Okay.
So he qualified, applied for Habitat. You have to have 2,500 hours of volunteer. He has to have a job. He's a father that has custody with the baby's mother. They share. They're both Angel Reach clients, but he's getting a Habitat house. I told him I didn't have a house at age 25. You've done great, but they need self-confidence.
Sure.
And they've been bounced around. So it's mentoring. I think if you got involved in it, it's not for everybody, but it will change your life.
Yeah. Yeah. And when you some people might be listening like, well, mentoring, what do I have to teach? I know accounting, or I know this, or I know that, but these kids, mentoring can just be showing up.
Yeah,
right?
it's a friend, being a friend.
Just showing up. It doesn't mean you have to teach anything. As a matter of fact, sometimes people don't want to be taught. They want someone to just hear them.
Right. Well, I didn't teach anything. So,
Yeah.
We teach financial planning, and we do tutoring, and we do GEDs and all that. I didn't do any of that. I was just a friend.
Yeah.
And I was going to be a friend to them. And I think taking them on mission trips, you get to know them really well.
Yeah, tell us about that.
Well, we've got a group of guys that I go now 4 times a year, but like 40 guys go to Honduras, and we pour cement floors for people that live with a dirt floor in a one-room house. And it's the poorest of the poor after Haiti is Honduras.
Right.
So they're down there working, mixing cement, and they're seeing faith-based guys, and they're saying, I can help somebody.
Yeah.
And so when they get to hang out with a group of 40 guys that have been, I wouldn't say they've been successful for sure financially, but they're not all there either. That's why they're on a mission trip.
Sure.
And they don't want to leave. They're saying, God, let me stay here a year.
Yeah.
I'm changing these. They don't even have a pair of shoes or anything to eat. So they're saying, I had it bad, but nothing like
These
third
people,
world countries.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so that's just a great experience. They fly on an airplane, they get to hang out, but they work hard.
Yeah. That's
So,
awesome.
but it takes a while, and as I said, about half our kids don't make it. And I would say half our kids leave the program, and they half come back because they get out and find out it's not so bad to have rules. Zero tolerance on drugs, fighting, and they've grown up with that, so it just takes a while. But we house them, we feed them, we clothe them, we counsel them, and we're friends to them. And our staff, if you'd be our staff, we don't pay a whole lot. So people don't do this to make a lot of money. They do it because their hearts changed. Our executive director's father was adopted, she was adopted, and she's adopted a child. So they have the heart for it.
Yeah. You can't unsee something, can you?
Right.
Yeah, you can't unhear something. And I think that is the power of going on mission trips. I think you know this about our family, but that's really where we woke up to this, was a trip to Haiti. When our oldest was about to graduate, my husband and I looked at each other and said, what if we not, we got this bucket list, right? We're about to launch a kid. This is a big deal. What if we not instilled? It was a little bit of a panic, like, whoa, he's about to go out into the world. What have we put everything in? Because our time's about up.
Yeah.
And we had a friend who'd been on a lot of mission trips, and I was so intrigued by her. She's always talking about Romania and all these different places that she'd been and all these miraculous things that she'd seen. And I was like, I want some of that, and I want my kids to see that. And so we took a trip to Haiti, and it opened up all 5 of our eyes to a place where we were like, we can't just go back. We aren't the same.
Right.
We can't go back to the Woodlands, Texas, Magnolia, Texas. We can't go back there and just do what we always did, because we'd seen something. We'd seen something that changed us.
Right.
And I just think that's an important thing.
The third world countries, what I asked one of our pastors who is in charge of mission trips, I don't get it. How can a loving God let so many people in the world die, their teeth fall out, they're starving, they have no shoes, and their kids are growing up in the same way? And for a long time, he said, I don't have an answer for you. But all I can tell you is if you bring faith to them and community, they've got some help. But their only hope is is heaven. And if you can get that in them, but they're never going to have shoes. I mean, a cement floor they pray for. One family said they prayed 35 years for a cement floor in a one-room shack, which they got. So, but I would tell you, you don't need to go to Haiti or Romania or anywhere. You just go across the railroad tracks where we live, and there's a tent city.
Where anyone lives, right? Where anyone lives.
Tent city in Conroe with youth sleeping in tents. And hopefully many of them will come to Angel Reach.
One thing I found in Haiti, and then also just, where someone has nothing, in America, and I mean, pretty much anyone who lives here has a privilege that you don't have in another, because we have a welfare system. And, but anyone, recently, there's people in our lives that have so much money, and yet their lives are just falling apart, and they find one thing after another to buy or drink or take or whatever to medicate, because their life's just falling apart. When you have nothing to medicate, you're forced, you find something within.
Right.
And so I think that was the beauty that we saw in Haiti. We saw people living with so little, and yet a smile on their face. And they just wanted to talk to you. They just wanted to have you sit with them. They just wanted to offer you something to eat.
Right.
And so it was like, what do they have that we don't? It was kind of a question that we wondered, There's something there. Yes, they need basic essentials. They need clean water, for one. They need food. They needed things, right? There were people that are dying, right? But there was something that they had that we didn't.
Right, and I go back to what I said. I want you to remember.
The
real joy in life is helping someone in need.
That's right.
And they can be your next door neighbor, they can be across the railroad tracks, or they can be in a third world.
Yeah.
And
so find that person.
Yeah, find that opportunity that
because
touches
it's for
your heart.
you.
Yes.
It's for you just as much as it is for them.
Right.
That's right.
Right.
That's great, George. Some of these episodes, I started off doing it a lot, and I've kind of backslid a little bit. But today, it just absolutely will happen. But I have these cards. It's called Mama's Well. And so each episode has what I call a Mama's Well, a wisdom from the well. And so sometimes my guests will have something that's very profound and they want to share, and I put them on these cards that people can download. And so I'll make sure that I put that message on the card. Good. And then they can click on it in the email that I send. Subscribe at mamaswell.com. You click on the email, click on the card, watch the podcast, listen to the podcast, download that card and post it. Post it on your visor in your car or on your mirror in your bathroom or wherever. I have these all over my house.
Yeah,
it's
those
the
are
way
great.
that I affirm myself and remind myself of who I am and what I'm doing, and encourage myself. So.
And let me follow up on something we talked about. I can only speak on Texas. In Texas, the foster system is a broken system.
Sure.
So over 40,000 people in the foster system. You talked about how many age out. They are good foster parents.
Sure.
We're not dealing with the good ones. We're the ones that abuse the system. Just talk about how broken it is. And it doesn't make the agenda for the state of Texas. There's too many other things above it. So it's not going to change. If you and I want to foster a child and we're approved, we're going to get paid $600 a month per child. So if we have 4 children, we're getting $2,400 a month until they're 18 years old, if they stay with us. And a lot of them abuse the system. We talked about when they age out, they walk out with nothing. They get Medicaid, but they get no financial support. Here's how broken it is. If you're in Texas and you age out, you get free tuition and books to any state school in Texas. You mentioned statistics. Graduation rate, 2%. Why? They have no car, no house, no home, and they didn't get out of high school, so how are they going to go to college?
Right.
So that's how broken it is. If
Yeah.
you're a kinship family and you agree to take in some of your grandchildren, you get zero support from the state. Zero.
Yeah.
And so it's broken. So who's going to help a broken system? It's you and I.
Yeah.
It's the faith-based organizations. It's the corporations. It's people with hearts.
Yeah.
And that's what happens at Angel Reach. We've got 200 volunteers that want to help. And there's so many great charities. So it's a shame that it's such a broken system. And you mentioned we have welfare in the U.S. People are not going to go hungry.
Right.
They can find a place to sleep. But, they're going to get sidetracked on drugs and problems.
Right. Because of so much unresolved trauma, they're in so much pain, they have to medicate.
Right.
It literally is a survival strategy.
Well, I mentioned these residential treatment centers. If they can't place foster kids in Texas, they go to a for-profit, I call it reform school, and the more they drug them, the more they're paid by the state. So when they age out of 18, they're kicked out again, just like out of a foster family, and they're on the street, and they've been drugged for, So trauma takes a long time to heal.
A long time, yes. Your life, it's a lifetime healing. You get just better and better and better and more aware. You mentioned, I hadn't ever thought about that, but you're right. It's almost like a foster parent is incentivized not to adopt a child because of the pay.
Correct.
And so then that child never has permanency. They never really have a family.
Well, they don't get love in their foster in these type situations. There are good foster parents that they do get loved, but my wife was adopted at 8 days old out of a 15-year-old mother, but she was raised by great parents, and that's her parents.
Yeah.
But these kids, they don't have that, and they've been mistreated by the foster parents. We've got some that have been in 14 different homes in 18 years. And eventually, no one will take them anymore. And so they put them in the residential treatment centers till they're 18. Then they're kicked out on the street with no benefits.
Right.
So it's
the real joy in life.
It's helping someone in need.
Helping someone in need. I agree.
Yeah.
I agree. Thank you, George.
Thank you.
Is there any way? Okay, so I will make sure that we put a way to the Angel Reach website.
It's angelreach.org.
Angelreach.org.
I think it's a great website, and anyone's interested, we have monthly newsletters.
Yeah.
But go to the website.
Yeah.
That tells you all the opportunities to volunteer.
And if there's somebody that's listening that's like maybe in your position, like maybe they're like, man, I've done all this. I've achieved everything, and then like you said, when you made CEO of the Fortune 500, you were like, well, now what?
It's lonely.
Yeah, lonely, right?
I would tell that group one thing: read the book Halftime.
Okay.
It's about success versus significance. And so many people like myself and others that we know, our friends, they do well, but they never figured it out till late in life. So about the fourth quarter, they dawns on them, hey, there's got to be more to life than the last 3 quarters of my life because I have no joy. And but some figure, and the ones that can figure it out at a young age, y'all figured it out. You and Kyle, I would say, are good examples of people who didn't have to wait 50 years to figure it out.
Well, and I remember Kyle saying to me, and he figured it out before me, or at least he was sticking his toe in the water. He came home and he said, I don't want to wake up. He was about 32 years old. And he said, I don't want to wake up when I'm 50 and say, all I ever did was try to make more money.
That's the right answer.
Yeah, but I was like, we had just built a house, and I had 3 little children, and I wasn't working at the time, and I said, well, what the heck? What else what are we supposed to do? You know? But thankfully, we stayed with the conversation long enough to figure that out.
Well, I would tell you, God wants all of us to make as much money as possible. God wants us all to be rich.
So
but
we
then
can
God
do
wants
good
us, it's not our money.
Yeah.
It's the kingdom's money. Then the question is, what do you do with all that money? Well, God's told you what to do with it. Give it back to the kingdom, help those in need. And that's where the joy comes from.
And then isn't it funny how I think in that situation, like you don't ever worry about money and you probably give more than you've ever given.
Right.
Yeah.
But again, I would tell you, if not everybody makes a lot of money.
Yeah.
But giving your time many times is as valuable or more valuable, sweat equity I call it.
Yeah.
Being a volunteer is as or more important than writing a check.
Yeah.
And writing a check for a lot of people is just an easy way to get something off their conscience, but I would tell you they may not be having a whole lot of joy from writing a check.
Right.
And anyone that would like to tour, if you're local and you want to tour of Angel Reach, I do that every week.
You love to do that,
I
don't
love
you?
to, and I always say if you don't see it and touch it, you don't get it. I used to think a picture's worth 1,000 words, but you've been to Haiti. You can show people pictures of Honduras and Haiti all day long. They're not going to get it.
No.
Till you step in it,
You
smell
gotta
it.
smell it. I was just going to say, you gotta
Step in
smell
it.
it, see it.
Yeah.
You gotta see the goats eating the trash and the piles in the street.
And you got to see kids with no shoes
Yeah.
that don't know if they're going to get to eat today.
Yeah.
I mean, I've seen families we've helped that have not eaten in 3 days. Yeah. So that is a wake-up call.
Changes your life.
Yeah, and we're so blessed where we live in such a great country.
Yeah.
And I think we're expected to give back because we are so blessed. And when you do give back, that's when you find happiness.
Yeah. I agree, George.
Yeah.
Thank you.
My pleasure.
Thank you.
Thank you for all y'all are doing.
Yeah. It's, you know what? It's just what you said. It's can even feel selfish at times because I feel like sometimes I get more than I'm giving. With my girls, I can just look at them and go, what would I do without the 2 of them? What would I do?
See, the real joy in life is helping someone in need. That's
Yeah.
exactly what you did when
Yeah.
you adopted 2 girls.
Yeah. Yeah. It's a beautiful
And
thing.
that's where your joy's coming
It's
from.
a beautiful thing. So.
And not everybody can adopt. I understand that.
Sure.
It just doesn't work out, but you sure can semi-adopt and spend time with those in need.
And we can stop complaining. We could take all that effort and energy about complaining about the system and the welfare and they're this and the this and this and this and just like go, oh, if we just like 5 kids, you've changed their life.
Right.
They're contributors to society now. They are equipped to go out and do something and help other people. And it's just like pyramid scheme, right?
Yeah. Well, again,
like,
just think
wow.
about these kids that we're dealing with. If they've never been in a boat in their life, they've never been on an airplane, they've never eaten a good restaurant, they've never had a new pair of clothes, never been bowling. I mean, just things we take for granted every day that we're doing. We had one of the nail salons volunteer and did 10 of our ladies' nails. They'd never had them done. And they're 18, 20 years old. They were on cloud nine for getting their nails painted.
Yeah.
So it doesn't take a whole lot to change lives
That's right.
and spread joy.
That's right. Thank you, George.
All right.
Thank you. I hope you were listening, and I hope you were able to just sit back and not beat yourself up for what you're not doing at all, but just to open up your mind to the possibility that there might be something more. And for those of you most of you listening are serving in the trenches. Like you are in the trenches with kids in your home. And that is hard work. And I want to just offer up to you that thank you. And to remind you that you're making a huge impact by providing a safe home and a safe place and a trauma-informed approach to your parenting. And so I thank you for that. And I hope that you can find the joy in that today. And you know what? Some days we don't, and that's okay. That's okay, because some days are hard. But just know that at the end of that really hard day, you're probably due a really good day. So hang in there. Don't forget, share this podcast with others. Share this podcast with people that might even be in George's position right now going, what do I do? What is it that I need? What is it that I'm missing? Sometimes I think we have this second half of our life that, like, you know, man, wouldn't it be cool if we could live this way in the first half of our life? But you get this place by going through the first half of your life. And so share this podcast, share it with others, and take good care of yourself, and we'll see you next week.
Mama's way.